movie soundtracks. There are a lot of good ones out there, especially from the way back in the 40s until now. But there are some really bad. There are really bad ones out there. They're not good, and some of them are really bad. And we're going to really talk about one good soundtrack and one bad movie soundtrack today. And that's what we're really going to talk about today in my opinion piece. A good movie soundtrack and the qualities that it has, and the bad movie soundtrack and the qualities that has. So let's first start off with American Graffiti. Now, this is a really good movie soundtrack because it's from the 70s. It's got a lot of catchy rhythmic songs, dance-like songs to dance to, and it's just a really good soundtrack. Not all of it is songs, but there are a lot of songs in there that from were born in the 60s or were born before that time. They'll know those songs. For kids now, they might not get it, but I still think it's a good movie soundtrack because it has a lot of songs that a lot of people will know. A lot of them are 60s and early 70s, but I think most of them will get what the soundtrack's going for. It's just a really fun soundtrack. It's a really great soundtrack, and it just makes the movie American Graffiti better as a whole. And that really, it's already great. So now the bad movie soundtrack is Space Jam. Space Jam is not good at all with its soundtrack. The movie is fine, just to say, but the soundtrack's not that good. I mean, yes, it has the Space Jam theme song in the beginning, but that's like the only really good song in the film. But really, it doesn't have any redeeming qualities in its soundtrack. It tries to mix in some like 80s and 90s songs in that doesn't really work, and like I said, the movie's fine. It's just the soundtrack could have been better. It's not a fun soundtrack. It really isn't a rewatchable and re-listenable soundtrack, and it doesn't make the movie bad. I mean, it's still fine, but personally, I think really the soundtrack's really bad because it's not a fun soundtrack to really listen to over and over again. So if we compare the two soundtracks from American Graffiti and from Space Jam, American Graffiti is the better soundtrack because it has a fun soundtrack. It's got catchable songs, rhythmic, dance-like songs you can dance to, and the soundtrack makes the movie greater as a whole because of its awesome, fun, songy soundtrack. Space Jam doesn't have any of those qualities because, the movie's fine, but the soundtrack doesn't make the movie better because it's really bad. Even though it does have some good songs in there, it's still really bad, and it's not as fun, as re-listenable to listen to as American Graffiti is. So American Graffiti is better than Space Jam in terms of its soundtrack because it has a great influence on Hollywood, and it really, for the time of the 70s, it inspired a lot of like soundtracks to have 60s songs in there for ones that like took place in the early 70s or late 60s or something like that. And it's a very great rewatchable movie, and it's a fun soundtrack, really great to listen to, and it's just really an awesome movie to watch. You haven't seen American Graffiti, just go watch it. It is a good movie. But if we look, Space Jam doesn't have any of those qualities. It doesn't have a fun soundtrack. It's not re-listenable. It doesn't have an influence on Hollywood like American Graffiti had. And let's just say it's okay. So American Graffiti, to say again, it's just better than Space Jam because of its influence on Hollywood, its rewatchability, its fun soundtrack, that Space Jam doesn't have. In rewatchability, in re-listenability, and influence Hollywood that American Graffiti had all. Space Jam, unfortunately, does not.